What if the world's most important city hasn't been built yet? Why does America keep imagining projects so ambitious that they leave even Europeans questioning everything they believed about the country's future? Telosa isn't just a proposed $400 billion city. It reveals a way of thinking that has shaped America for generations, and it may explain why the future still seems to keep looking west. America builds. Tomorrow. Some visitors reached America during the 2026 World Cup, expecting a country held together by traffic jams, political arguments, and convenience stores selling drinks large enough to have their own zip code. Instead, they encountered welcoming cities, energetic crowds, generous hospitality, and a national confidence that looked very different from the gloomy portrait often repeated abroad. Then Telosa appeared on the screen, and the contrast became even harder to ignore. While much of the world debates whether the future still belongs to America, Americans are calmly discussing where to place a brand new city for 5 million people. That is the real cultural surprise behind Telosa. The project is not impressive merely because its estimated cost reaches $400 billion. Plenty of governments can announce an expensive structure. What feels unmistakably American is the scale of the question being asked. If an entire city could be designed from the beginning, why repeat the limitations inherited from older ones? Telosa is planned as a metropolis of more than 120 square kilometers, roughly comparable in area to San Francisco, yet intended to accommodate over 5 million residents. According to the supplied project material, that would place more than 6 times San Francisco's current population within a similar footprint. The proposed first phase would cover 6 square kilometers and house approximately 50,000 people, an area described as nearly twice the size of Central Park. Those figures make Telosa feel less like a real estate development and more like someone placed an entire metropolitan region on a drafting table. This scale lands differently for Europeans accustomed to cities shaped by centuries of history. London still works around streets laid out long before automobiles. Rome regularly balances modern construction against archaeological remains beneath the ground. Amsterdam's narrow canal houses were created for an age when a family carriage was considered heavy traffic. Their beauty is undeniable, yet their infrastructure cannot simply be erased and redrawn whenever modern life demands more space. America has another option: open land and the confidence to begin again.
Americans, I truly believe that you guys do not know how lucky you are. How lucky you are to live in America. How lucky you are to be able to explore and see such a beautiful continent, not country. That's what I heard anyway. So big, it's crazy.
Telosa's proposed location in the American West turns that geographical freedom into an enormous advantage. Undeveloped land is available at a lower initial cost, allowing planners to position neighborhoods, transportation, energy systems, schools, parks, and commercial areas before congestion decides everything for them. The source identifies Nevada, Utah, Idaho, Arizona, and Texas among the possible locations, although no final site had been selected. That does not make construction easy. Water, extreme heat, financing, and infrastructure remain serious obstacles, especially in a desert environment. Yet the ambition itself explains why many visitors begin viewing America differently after spending time there. The country they were told was declining is still proposing cities larger than many European capitals, planning for millions of future residents, and treating empty land as an invitation rather than a limitation. Telosa may eventually change, shrink, or remain unfinished, but its boldness already reveals something important. America's greatest natural resource may not be land, technology, or capital. It may be the stubborn belief that tomorrow can still be built from scratch. The city pays back. Most cities grow richer in a strangely uneven way. A new train line opens, a park improves, businesses arrive, and land values rise almost overnight. The neighborhood becomes more desirable, yet the people who helped give it life may discover that they can no longer afford to remain there. Telosa wants to interrupt that familiar pattern, and this may be the project's most quietly radical idea. Its proposed economic model is called Equitism. Under the plan, the city would retain ownership of the land, while residents could build, own, and sell the homes placed on it. As Telosa developed and the underlying land became more valuable, part of that increase would be returned to public transportation, education, healthcare, and other shared services. In simple terms, the city would try to make its rising value work for everyone living there, rather than allowing the entire reward to disappear into private land prices. That idea feels especially striking when placed beside some of Europe's most expensive cities. In London, Paris, Amsterdam, and Dublin, strong demand has made housing one of the hardest parts of urban life, even when the cities themselves remain productive and attractive. Public investment can improve an area, but the financial benefit often appears first in rents, sale prices, and the increasingly nervous expression of anyone opening a property website. Telosa is asking a very American question. If the community helps create the value, why should the community not receive a larger share of it? There's something deeply appealing about that logic. A new school would not merely educate children, it could make the surrounding area more desirable. Better transit would not simply shorten commutes, it could increase the worth of nearby land. Instead of treating those gains as an accidental jackpot for a small group of owners, Telosa proposes recycling them into the machinery of daily life. The concept almost sounds like a neighborhood discovering that the rising price of its own backyard can help repair the sidewalk, fund a clinic, and keep the bus running on time. Wall Street may call that a financial mechanism. Most families would probably call it getting something useful back. Of course, the model still raises practical questions. Land values do not climb forever. Public institutions need strong oversight, and residents would need clear rights within a system where the city owns the ground beneath their homes. The supplied material explains the ambition, but it does not provide enough detail to prove that the arrangement would work at full scale. Even so, the proposal reveals why Telosa can be so compelling to people who arrive in America expecting only private wealth and individual competition. Here's an American megaproject trying to connect ambition with shared benefit. The message is surprisingly warm. Growth should leave behind more than luxury towers and expensive coffee. It should leave behind a better city. Goodbye, endless commutes. The most futuristic thing about Telosa may not be the tower, the autonomous vehicles, or the solar roofs. It may be something far less dramatic, getting to school, work, a grocery store, or a park without surrendering half the day to traffic. Telosa is planned around the idea that essential destinations should remain within roughly a 15-minute trip. Offices, schools, shops, restaurants, and public spaces would be placed close enough to daily life that a simple errand would not require the strategy of a military operation. Heavy traffic would stay near the outer edges of each superblock, while bicycles and slower electric vehicles would receive priority on quieter inner streets. That sounds practical, but the deeper appeal is emotional. Long commutes do more than waste fuel. They slowly steal breakfast conversations, evening walks, time with children, and the small moments that make a city feel like home. A person may live in a beautiful neighborhood, yet still experience most weekdays through a windshield and a row of brake lights. Telosa is trying to return that missing time before residents even move in. Some European cities already understand this rhythm. In Copenhagen, cycling is woven into ordinary commuting rather than treated like a weekend hobby involving expensive clothing. Amsterdam's dense neighborhoods place shops, schools, and cafes close together, while Paris has pushed the 15-minute city idea as part of its recent planning strategy. However, those cities reached this point through centuries of compact growth, often with streets designed before cars became the loudest member of the family. Telosa has the rare American advantage of starting with a lesson already learned. Instead of squeezing new habits into an old street plan, the city can place movement where it belongs from day one. The loudest vehicles remain outside residential cores. Children, pedestrians, and cyclists receive calmer space inside. Public transport and electric vehicles are meant to work together rather than compete for whatever pavement remains. It is urban planning with the cabinets installed before everyone discovers the kitchen has no outlets. This approach could become addictive for a simple reason. Convenience creates freedom. When a park is nearby, people use it more often. When a school does not require a long drive, mornings become less frantic. When groceries are close, buying one forgotten ingredient no longer turns into a 40-minute expedition, ending with 3 impulse purchases and a giant iced drink. That is where Telosa may surprise European observers most. America is often mocked for building cities around cars, yet this project is openly questioning that habit without rejecting American comfort or mobility. It does not demand that everyone walk everywhere. It tries to offer enough choices that driving becomes one option, rather than the price of participating in daily life. A truly modern city should not merely move people faster, it should give them more time after they arrive. Telosa's boldest promise may be that the future will feel less like commuting and more like living. The city makes power. A normal city consumes electricity the way a stadium crowd consumes snacks during overtime. Constantly, loudly, and with no intention of slowing down. Telosa wants to reverse that relationship. Instead of behaving like one enormous customer connected to the grid, the proposed city is designed to become a power producer in its own right, generating more electricity than its residents and buildings are expected to use. That single idea changes the mood of the entire project. The plan calls for photovoltaic cells on building rooftops, supported by wind turbines placed around the city's outer boundaries. According to the supplied material, Telosa is intended to produce more power than it consumes, creating an urban system that can support itself in electricity generation. This is not the familiar image of a few solar panels added to City Hall so the mayor can take a cheerful photograph. Energy production would be woven into the city from the first stage of design. That matters because most European cities must add clean technology onto structures built for completely different centuries. Historic roofs in Rome, protected facades in Paris, and dense streets in central London cannot be treated like empty construction sites. Even when governments strongly support renewable energy, every upgrade must negotiate with old buildings, limited space, preservation rules, and electrical networks that were never designed for thousands of small power sources. Telosa gets to skip that awkward renovation phase. It can place rooftops at useful angles, reserve land for turbines, connect storage systems before neighborhoods are occupied, and design power distribution without first opening streets that were repaired 6 months earlier. Anyone who has watched a freshly paved American road get dug up for utility work will understand why planning this in advance feels almost luxurious. The deeper attraction is not really about technology. It is about the American desire for independence. A city capable of producing its own electricity would have more control over future demand, rising energy use, and disruptions beyond its borders. That does not mean Telosa could simply unplug from the rest of the country and live like an enormous desert cabin. Power storage, maintenance, weather conditions, backup capacity, and grid connections would still matter. Solar panels become less impressive after sunset, while wind turbines remain stubbornly uninterested in planning meetings. Yet the ambition carries a familiar national instinct. Build enough capacity that scarcity does not control the conversation. European energy policy often begins with efficiency because space and resources are limited. Telosa begins with abundance as the goal. It asks whether a city can generate so much clean electricity that transportation, homes, public services, and future growth are supported by the same system. This approach feels less like telling residents to use smaller lamps and more like building a bigger, cleaner power source behind the house. That may be one reason the project feels so magnetic. Telosa does not present sustainability as punishment, sacrifice, or a life of counting every appliance. It presents clean energy as infrastructure strong enough to support comfort, movement, growth, and ordinary American convenience. The city has not been built, and its energy claims remain promises rather than proven results. Even so, the idea reveals an appealing version of environmental progress. People do not have to choose between modern comfort and responsible design when both are planned together from the beginning. Telosa wants the sun and wind to work the utility shift, while residents simply live their lives. That is a future many visitors could imagine getting used to very quickly. Farms in the sky. Most cities hide their food systems so well that residents barely notice it exists. Lettuce appears under supermarket lights, tomatoes arrive in neat plastic boxes, and nobody has to think about the miles, warehouses, refrigeration, or trucks required to place them there. Telosa takes that invisible machinery and puts part of it inside the city's most recognizable building. At the center of the plan stands the Equitism Tower, intended to serve as Telosa's tallest landmark. Yet the structure is designed to do more than decorate postcards. The supplied project material says it would contain an observation deck, elevated water storage, and aeroponic farms capable of supplying fresh produce to the city. In other words, Telosa wants its skyline to help stock the refrigerator. That detail says far more about the American character than another polished rendering ever could. The familiar approach would place a dramatic tower downtown, add an expensive restaurant near the top, and let visitors pay $20 to look through a telescope. Telosa gives the tower a second job. It still gets to be impressive, but it also has to help feed people, because apparently even futuristic American landmarks are expected to pull their weight. Aeroponic farming grows plants without ordinary soil, allowing roots to receive water and nutrients through a controlled mist. Inside a planned urban environment, the attraction is easy to understand. Produce could be grown closer to residents, protected from harsh outdoor conditions, and harvested without depending entirely on farmland located hundreds of miles away. For a proposed desert city, where conventional agriculture would face obvious limits, that is less a decorative feature than a practical survival lesson. European cities have long protected food traditions built around nearby regions. Paris depends on vast wholesale and distribution networks beyond its center, while London's food supply arrives through an international chain that stretches far beyond the city's boundaries. Rotterdam has experimented with urban agriculture and high-tech growing, and the Netherlands is globally known for greenhouse efficiency. However, most historic European capitals cannot suddenly place large food production systems inside their oldest districts without starting a planning debate that could outlive the vegetables. Telosa has the unusual freedom to treat food as infrastructure from the beginning. That difference matters because fresh produce is often discussed as a lifestyle choice when it is really a logistics problem. A salad may look simple on the plate, but getting every ingredient there requires land, water, labor, cooling, transportation, storage, and timing precise enough to keep spinach from becoming a science experiment. Growing part of that supply inside the city could shorten the chain and make fresh food feel less dependent on distant highways. The idea also creates a surprisingly emotional connection between residents and place. A tower that stores water and grows food would become more than a symbol people photograph. It would participate in daily life, quietly supporting meals, markets, and perhaps school programs beneath the same roof. That is the kind of usefulness people become attached to because it turns civic pride into something they can actually taste. Telosa has not proven that aeroponic farms could feed millions, and the source does not claim they would replace traditional agriculture. The value lies in something more realistic: reducing dependence, diversifying supply, and refusing to waste vertical space on appearance alone. America has always loved a skyline, but Telosa wants one that does chores. America beta tests tomorrow. There's a very American sentence hiding behind Telosa: let's build one and see. That attitude explains far more than a futuristic city in the desert. It explains why the United States so often becomes the place where ideas leave the presentation screen, put on a hard hat, and discover whether they can survive real life. Other countries may produce brilliant research, elegant plans, and careful regulations, but America has built a culture that is unusually comfortable treating the future like a prototype. Telosa belongs to that tradition. Its real attraction is not that every promise will come true exactly as advertised, because large projects almost never behave that politely. The attraction lies in America's willingness to test a bold idea at a scale large enough to produce useful answers. Even an imperfect attempt can reveal what works, what fails, what costs too much, and what deserves a second version. The numbers help explain why this habit remains so powerful. According to the National Science Foundation's National Center for Science and Engineering Statistics, research and development performed in the United States reached approximately $886 billion in 2022. Businesses accounted for the largest share of that activity, showing how deeply experimentation is connected to the private economy rather than being confined to universities or government laboratories. That distinction matters. In many European countries, ambitious urban projects often move through longer public planning systems before construction begins. Germany's new Berlin-Brandenburg Airport, for example, opened in 2020 after repeated delays and years of technical problems. Britain's high-speed 2 rail project has also been repeatedly revised as costs and political priorities changed. Europe is not short of engineering talent. It often struggles with the number of locks placed on the door before an idea is allowed outside. America frequently accepts a messier bargain: build a pilot, learn from the embarrassment, improve the design, and try again before the committee has finished choosing the biscuits. That approach gave the world technologies that now feel ordinary. GPS grew from American defense research before becoming the quiet voice telling millions of drivers that they missed the exit. The early internet developed through federally supported research. Then private companies transformed it into everyday infrastructure. Reusable rockets sounded theatrical until American companies began landing boosters upright as casually as Texans backing a pickup into a driveway. Not every experiment succeeds, and that is precisely why the culture matters. Failure in the United States can be expensive, public, and occasionally impressive enough to receive its own documentary. Yet it is rarely treated as proof that experimentation itself should stop. The first attempt becomes evidence for the next one. For European visitors, this can feel strangely refreshing. Telosa is not asking permission to imagine a perfect city after every uncertainty has disappeared. It is saying that some answers only arrive after concrete is poured, systems are tested, and reality begins correcting the brochure. That may be America's most addictive quality. The country does not merely sell people a finished future, it invites them into the workshop while sparks are still flying. Telosa could change dramatically, lose funding, or remain only partly completed, but the instinct behind it will survive because Americans have never required tomorrow to arrive fully assembled. Sometimes they are perfectly happy to open the box, ignore half the instructions, and start building before lunch. America steals. Dreamers. Imagine Telosa opening its doors tomorrow morning. The first residents would not arrive carrying identical resumes, speaking with one accent, or agreeing on the best way to cook breakfast. They would come from different states, countries, professions, and family histories because America's most powerful urban technology has never been concrete, steel, or artificial intelligence. It has always been the ability to attract restless people who believe their next chapter can be larger than their last one. That is the cultural engine behind nearly every ambitious American place. New York did not become New York because one generation finished it perfectly. Silicon Valley was not built by Californians working alone beneath one extremely productive palm tree. Houston, Miami, Chicago, Los Angeles, and Seattle became influential because people kept arriving with skills, hunger, money, recipes, inventions, and occasionally enough confidence to pitch an idea before anyone had asked. The data makes this more than a patriotic bedtime story. According to a 2022 analysis by the National Foundation for American Policy, immigrants founded or co-founded 55% of privately held American startup companies valued at $1 billion or more. Those firms created tens of thousands of jobs and included names such as SpaceX, Stripe, Instacart, and Databricks. The Kauffman Foundation has also repeatedly found that immigrants start businesses at higher rates than people born in the United States. America does not merely welcome talent, it gives ambition room to become noisy. That distinction helps explain why the country remains so magnetic to Europeans. London, Paris, Berlin, and Amsterdam are international cities with extraordinary talent. Yet moving from a clever idea to a company with national scale can be slower when markets are divided by language, regulation, taxation, and different consumer habits. A founder in the European Union may have access to hundreds of millions of customers on paper, but crossing borders can still feel like bringing 12 chargers for one weekend trip. An entrepreneur in America enters a single enormous market of more than 330 million people, connected by one dominant business language, a shared currency, national media, interstate logistics, and consumers who are unusually willing to try something new. Americans will download an app that promises to deliver dog food at midnight, review it before breakfast, and complain online as though they personally chaired the board. That impatience can be exhausting, but it forces ideas to improve quickly. This is where Telosa becomes more interesting than its architecture. A new city would need nurses, teachers, engineers, restaurant owners, mechanics, artists, builders, software developers, and families willing to take a chance on an address that did not exist before. Its success would depend less on beautiful renderings than on whether America could persuade enough capable people to say, "Why not me?" That phrase may be the nation's unofficial immigration policy, business plan, and motivational poster rolled into one. Europe preserves many of the world's finest cities by protecting what earlier generations created. America also respects history, but its deepest habit is giving newcomers permission to add another layer. Someone can arrive without an old family name, a private club membership, or a grandfather whose portrait watches over the office, then still build something that changes an industry. Telosa may never become the city shown in its promotional images, yet the country around it already proves the larger idea. When ambitious people from everywhere are placed inside a culture that rewards reinvention, an empty map does not remain empty for long. America's greatest construction material has always been human possibility. Maybe Telosa will rise exactly as imagined. Maybe it will evolve into something completely different. That is almost beside the point. What matters is that America continues asking the kinds of questions that many nations are afraid to ask, then has the courage to chase the answers. If you enjoyed exploring the bold ideas, remarkable places, and uniquely American spirit shaping tomorrow, subscribe to the channel, like this video, and join us for the next incredible journey. The future is always more exciting when we discover it together.